was going to be like, how's it feel being last? You're not first today. Now you feel the pain of a Pisces. But I was like, I'm not going to be that petty. But I ended up telling you anyway. So anyway, hello, Aries. Now that you've had time to consider, what will you do? Oh, you came out immediately. This is why every now and then you got to give an Aries some time. Give them some. Ooh, not coming out with a title card at the bottom of the deck. I'm going to honor that. Oh my. 4 runes, Aries. 4 runes. I thought this was going to be like 2. Come on, man. Woman. Person. Tarot is not gender specific, so that was not a gender specific or a gender implied man. That was a general man, just like I use girl as a general pronoun. It seemed like everybody is a girl. Girl, you would never believe, even though like you may not be a woman. So anyway, Aries has been busy. Almost like I was going to say almost like Capricorn, but not necessarily. Like Capricorn was busy, but busy in other ways. Aries, you have been busy. What have you been up to? Aries, maybe you should go last more often. I was going to say, if you give some Aries some time, they'll wow you. I mean, either way, Aries is going to perform, girl, because Aries is that girl. She is cardinal fire, okay? She is on when you tell her. She already gone. But when you get to sit a little bit, then you get to really be creative. Then you get to put a vision in motion. Then you get to take your time. I was talking in Cancer about Mars and how I feel that Saturn is a beneficial planet to aspect Mars because it gives it a framework or structure. And then Mars can it's almost like Mars can go wild and be a Knight of Wands and it not be destructive or whatever. Because it has a framework, a good foundation. So nice to see that you've been engaging, indulging your creativity. I'll read your runes last. So I'm going to need one of these, please. Can I please get one of these? Fine. I've been wanting to read cards this way anyway. I'll give it my best shot. And then we'll get into the Yggdrasil Norse divination. I have a feeling like I'm going to use runic tarot, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure how any of this is going to go, Aries. You might just be runes. Hey. You have health. Health restore. Number 61 to the left of your title card. You have Brahm 5277 to the bottom. Butcher's Broom Scrub. You have Hagal. Number 9, which is hail and weathering to the right, and above you have Leecha, which is a 72, another 9. Leech and emotional bleed, so 7799. You've been doing a lot, Aries. This is like a lot of self-care. This is an Aries that has... It's almost like you've invested as much energy internally as you're known to do and give externally. And it's doing you some good. It feels like your emotional and your physical health are very interconnected. I don't know if it's always that way or if it's like at this time type of thing. But it's like the more... It's almost like this makes me think of every time I was like, okay, body, I need you to keep it together long enough for me to find a job, get some money, and then I promise I'm going to use that money to get some fresh veg to eat right. So just please keep it together until I can afford to treat you better. But then I would not ever do it. So I'm doing it now. This ain't about me, because you're not me. You don't procrastinate like I do, I hope. But it makes me think like that the weathering health while you're like doing this emotional scrub. I think I like this something. This feels very therapeutic, very like instead of it being like a scraping something trying to get the grease off scrub, it feels like a body scrub, like a sugar scrub. I actually have some lavender sugar scrub that I got a long time ago, never used. Um, and I had a hand scrub one time, and it was wild to me because my hands didn't feel like my hands. Like it felt like somebody else was touching me because my skin was so like smooth, and because I'd never experienced it before. And my roommate at the time, he got his hand scrubbed too because we had a mutual friend who went to a cosmetology school, and she gave us hand scrubs one summer. And he was like, "These feel like woman hands," and I was like, "Yes, they do." And it's so weird. It doesn't feel like me touching me after the scrub. So maybe you become a brand new person. And what you're scrubbing though is these emotional bleeds. What I like about that sugar scrub energy on an emotional bleed is because you don't necessarily want to take a Brillo pad to a wound. You know what I mean? Because that might make it worse. Not that a sugar scrub wouldn't be painful, but it feels a lot more pleasant than the alternative. So that's that. So you sit at the crossroads of cleaning up the emotional body, maybe even the mental and the spiritual, and your physical health. It says weathering, but it feels like there's this like you are aware or becoming more aware of a mind body soul connection. More emphasis on the mind and the body than the soul, but because this is an emotional bleed, it's both the mind and the soul. Because the emotions kind of sort of sit between and bridge the two. It's reading like at the very least. Maybe for you, you've done a lot of emotional, mental stuff, and now you're wanting to also improve your physical health. Maybe the physical health is next. Maybe you've done a lot of inner work, and now you want your external environment to reflect that. So maybe like you'll clean or you'll reorganize. Maybe you'll feng shui, girl. I've been seeing some feng shui stories pop up on YouTube. And it's like they'll be like, "This is the only place that the bed can go," and the guy will be like, "Well, you can move the bed here, or the bed will stay there, but you turn it this way." You know what I mean? So now, who wants to come forward and co-sign this? I'll give it two more. One more. Okay. I was gonna say I'll leave it. Maybe you've been doing some deep inner emotional whatever, and that's a you and you. Loki at the bottom of the deck. So Aries is referencing Gemini, Capricorn referenced Cancer. Usually that would be a Taurus Cancer sextile and an Aries Gemini sextile, but since it was Cancer, it was more so an opposition. Opposition in aspect, not necessarily in nature. Anyway. Urtha Brunner is the first of the third realm of Alfheim. Sif is the first in the fourth realm of. It's not coming to my mind right now. It's not Midgard. Four, and four. What is up with you and fours, Aries? Oh, the Emperor. Oh, maybe you're getting on your Emperor status. Skrimir, which is the seventh and the second realm, deception, undermining of confidence, followed by Delling, the seventh of the sixth realm, which is beauty, but it can tend to vanity. I love this undermining confidence, and then we get this beauty. I think the vanity of it can be when that confidence is still an issue, but you pretend like it isn't an issue, so you overcompensate. maybe. But that'd be more like reading as vain rather than actually being vain. Actually, maybe not. It's an over emphasis on appearance because something else is lacking. Not always because something else is lacking. I know it's probably not a very spiritually correct thing to say, but I do always say that vanity is my favorite, like, deadly sin, or something like that. Because I went to like an Abercrombie and Fitch with my older sister one day years ago, and something about the vanity in that place, or something about the whole vibe, just like it really, I don't know, it spoke to me in a way. Because I'm not, I guess I'm going on an aside today, Aries. I've never really been the type of person to prioritize my physical health and appearance. For me, I've always valued my mind and my heart more so than my body. I'm like, the body gets me around, girl. As long as she's functioning, I'm good. Right? I'm not trying to necessarily play football or run a marathon. So, as long as it gets me from the couch to the bathroom to the kitchen, I'm all right. But something about being an Abercrombie and Fitch, I don't know. It spoke to me in a way that, like, so, like, obviously, like, clothes and stuff don't matter to me, or they didn't at that point. Not to say that they do now, but, now I'm like, okay, I want to at least look decent. You know what I mean? I want to look presentable to me and for me. But that was a whole lot of mental stuff. That was my emotional bleed affecting my physical appearance. um, but it was like just such a different world to be in, like, this store that people who sort of like care go to, like, or that was the whole air about it. Like, they have the pictures of the models up and all this kind of stuff, and it's like kind of dark and the music is kind of loud, and I don't know, I just lived for it. So I don't know, it was so far out of my realm of whatever that I was enticed, but not enough to like start buying the clothes and to do anything to actually be able to fit the clothes. You know what I mean? It was just an interesting experience. Anyway, Sif, Earth, Fertility, and Family. I think this is Vanaheim. The fourth in Vanaheim. No, this is Asgard. The fourth in the first realm. The first in the third realm. Alfheim, Asgard, Svartalfheim, I believe, or Dverghammer. I think this is Dverghammer in this deck, and then Svartalfheimr in this deck. Every card belongs to a different realm, which isn't, unheard of, because there are like 9 realms and I pulled 4 cards, so the odds aren't astronomical. But it is still interesting nonetheless. It's just like getting, not necessarily getting one card of every suit. I think it plays on this interconnected multidimensionality. Like, there's this emotional axis and then this physical axis, and you are sitting as this title card in the middle. So if this is 3-dimensional, and it's not, but body, mind, spirit, this is body, this is mind, spirit, soul is this axis that goes into the table. It goes either into the table or up from the table. This is making me think of Yor. It's a very Yor energy. Just because we see the one path intersected by the crossroads. Anyway, that's why. That's literally it. But Yor does speak of destiny. It speaks of these fated points. So maybe you are in this. It's almost like a dimensionless space. You're in a space outside of. It's outside. I want to say it's like outside of fate, but not outside of destiny. Or it's outside of destiny, but still within the realm of fate. Because it's almost like it's your destiny to not be bound by destiny, but not being bound by destiny is still a part of your fate. Or it's this fated point where you release yourself from a pre-told fate and you create your own, but you reaching the point where you create your own fate is still a part of your destiny. Fate and destiny for me aren't quite interchangeable all the time. There is a marked and notable difference here. I'm not sure how to define either one, but I feel like you get the gist. It's like you reach this point where you create your own path, but that was a point that you were always destined to, like you were always meant to reach that point. Type of energy. You have 4 cards, and I am not about to read all of them, girl. So we're gonna go with it. So, Urda Brunner is a place. It's where the past lives. Well, it looks like all 3 Norns live in the past, which is interesting. That speaks of the fate is told in the beginning. So for us, it's always the past where this happens, because as soon as we come into existence, it's like we're here. You know what I mean? Urda Brunner, decision, performance, and impacts. Who are you? I'll give it 2 more. And we're just going to do boom. Ooh, the sun. And look at this, like, halo effect behind Sif. Sif, Earth, Fertility, and Family is the Ten of Swords. Ooh. I don't know how many cards that is. The World, the Nine of Swords, the Three of Wands, the Queen of Cups, and the Queen of Pentacles. I'm going to say they're clarifying this. Ten of Swords. Scramir, Deception, Undermining of Confidence is the Hanged Man. And then Delling, Beauty, and Vanity is the Knight of Swords. Bottom of the deck is the Nine of Wands. This, again, no, that was Cancer. That got Wordhammer. All of these runes are arranged within the configuration of these 9 wands. So there's this energy. It's like using all of the pieces to try to get to that magical solution. Right at the bottom of the deck. So this is you going inside. It's a very hermit energy, but again, that was sort of implied that it was already evident. But it's like you go inside and you use everything. You're trying to use everything that you have within you. So you are opening new corridors in yourself, new emotional pathways, mental gateways. So it's like now you have done enough healing to think of things that you would have never thought of, to consider things that you would have easily overlooked, to question long held beliefs. And then you're also able to feel things that you've never felt before. Or maybe it's like you're able to emotionally process things that you wouldn't have been able to before. Now the physical is feeling like your external environment more so than just your body. But your body is your vehicle, your means of interacting with the physical environment. And that was Hail and Hagal. Okay. I had to remind myself of what that room was. So Urda Brunner is the sun. This, for me, that just, it clarifies or validates that whole, like, your destiny was always to reach the point where you create your own. Your fate was always to get to the point where you defy it. Because where the well of the Norns is, where the sisters who weave your tapestry, who weave your fate, they're in the sun. This is like, I want to say canonically. This is canonically the best card in the deck. It's life, it's life, vitality, virility, fertility, clarity, happiness, joy, all of the bright, happy, sunshine, fun time emotions, and that's where the Norns are living. Hopefully, this isn't you feeling like this. It could be like you feeling like the best of your days are behind you. And so maybe you encounter something where it's like, oh, girl, these have been a little rough, most of these today, where it's like your health is failing with the health and weathering. Um, Maybe like your health is failing. And so it's like you live life one way and then something happens and then you live life another way. So you think that your quality of life, I don't want to say you think, your quality of life definitely changes because of something physical. Reads as health, it reads as health, but it can just as easily be a drastic change in your financial situation for the worse. And that is what leads to all of these emotional problems when the body goes and when your experience changes that drastically. It's very easy to see the worst and to lose hope, and especially depending on what happens, very, very justified in that. Very valid, not justified, because I don't have to justify anything to anybody. You are valid in your feelings, girl. um, and so you take an emotional hit. It feels like, so then it's like you cleaning up the emotional fallout of what happened physically. So in some ways, it's almost like learning to accept that your life is what it is now and that it's not what it was. Or maybe that life isn't what you thought it would be. Your experience isn't what you thought it would be. And once that's it. Anything beyond that is hidden behind the title card. So it's like something happens and then you fall into a very valid, rough, emotional, mental space. But then it's like the divine is encouraging you, or maybe one day you encourage, you just like know that something prompts you to change your mental emotional state. So you start to work on the mental emotional as much as you can. Now, with the energy of like seeing things that you didn't necessarily see before, let's say, for example, that you develop a short-term or long-term disability. And because of that, your ability to provide for yourself is affected. And let's say that like you never considered applying for a disability or a social security for disabilities, but because like maybe you always saw that a certain type of way, or maybe there was a certain pride or ego that you had that prevented you from reaching out for help. But maybe it's like after you work through all of the mental emotional stuff, you now feel comfortable asking for help when you need help, if you need help. And so that makes your physical, like, it doesn't necessarily change your physical situation, but it makes it easier to live, at least a little bit, because now you're able to, like, your income is supplemented or whatever, and you can like eat, you can get groceries and stuff like that. Again, the title card is there, so I don't know what your outcome is. It's not for me to say. This is one of those, because that's the thing about this Nine of Wands that I didn't get around to saying. It feels like the solution lies outside of you. By that, I mean that it feels like this is the first step in some process where you go through everything within you, but then you go from like the 9 to the 10. And it's not necessarily the 10 of Wands in feeling overburdened. It could be that once you scrub through this emotional bleed and once you work out where that mental emotional energy is sort of leaking, and once you like, I don't want to say cauterize it, but maybe I will say cauterize it. Once you cauterize it, but the cauterizing is like a return of your fire, because that it's like that's a deflated Aries almost. It's not Aries and their true and full Aries glory. And no one has to be happy and bright and bubbly and full of energy in life all the time. That's not what I'm saying at all. But you are more than just like go go go. You're more than just the wildfire, you know. You're more complex than that. And so even if you can't physically do the things that you used to, you can still be you. It makes me think of like an athlete who experiences a physical injury that prevents them from participating in the sport that they love, or the college student who was the smartest in their hometown, who smart becomes a part of their identity, but then they go to college and it's like, okay, like you get your first B or your first C, you discover that you're not the smartest person in the world, and that, you know, there are other smart people out there, or that, you know, it's one of those. And I use that because I know it happened to so many. Not only did it happen to a lot of people I went to school with, I also saw like a TikTok or a tweet or something about it like the day before yesterday. um it's almost like when we overly relate to one part of our identity, it becomes central or it becomes core, and when we lose that, that affects us tremendously. But in that, we learn that we're more than just that one characteristic, or we're more than just that one part of ourselves. And it's no easy feat. And I think maybe that's this Ten of Swords energy here. It's more so like going through the acceptance of that loss. But it feels like once you do that, you're like open, or you open yourself up to being able to, like, again, it's like that seeing things that you didn't necessarily like, seeing things that were easy for you to overlook, thinking about things that you never really considered. It's like it opens you up to expand beyond where you are now, and to expand beyond everything that you know. And maybe, just maybe, take it if it resonates, don't if it don't. Maybe that's the reason why you, part of the reason why you experienced whatever you experienced. Part of the reason being for you to get to learn to see yourself in a whole or greater light, to not overly identify or to stake all of your identity on one aspect, piece and parcel of it. The other part is for you to grow and expand in ways that you wouldn't have ever necessarily thought you would have had to before without it. Because again, it's like maybe it's like a drastic difference in comfort. It's like when you were comfortable, you never had to. It's like when you were a peak athlete at the top of your game, crushing it every single time, you never had to be anything more than really good at your sport. Or no one like wanted anything more from you. And maybe it's not that you didn't want anything more from yourself, but it's just like that's where your passion was. So of course that's where you devoted a lot of your time, energy, and effort, and you got a lot of fulfillment out of it. Of course, and that's not a bad thing. It doesn't make you like vapid, or it doesn't mean that you don't want more out of life because you were doing what you were great at and you were living it up. Take it as it resonates, apply it how it fits, where it fits, if it fits. If it don't take it. But now that you lose that thing, you're almost forced to develop in other ways. Maybe that development is a choice. It's almost like whether or not you can pull yourself out of it. Queen of Cups, Queen of Pentacles is very kind. I was thinking about this earlier. Like the Queen of Cups is nice. The Queen of Pentacles is kind. The Queen of Cups will listen to you if you need someone to listen to. the Queen of Pentacles will provide for you if you need something provided for you. Together, they are both the listener and the provider. Then we have the Three of Wands, preceded by the Nine of Swords and the World. I feel like this, not only is this, it feels like the World and the Nine of Swords is a reaction to what happened, but I feel like it almost, it feels like it's almost like being under this immense pressure that you never allowed yourself. It's not allowing yourself, it's like being under an immense pressure that you never consciously felt, because you were putting your all into getting better at your craft and you were crushing it. Like whatever you wanted, whatever you had to do, you were doing it. And so you never really felt the weight of like expectation. It's almost like it's not until you aren't able to do the thing that now you feel the weight of like everyone expecting you to be able to perform. And if that was what you primarily staked your identity upon, now that it's gone again, it's almost like it's no wonder why you may feel like there's nothing like left. And again, it's not like it's no judge of the strength of a person. It doesn't make you weak or dumb for not. It's almost like when people are like, oh, well, if you want to be an athlete, well, you should still go to university and get a degree in something that you can use just in case the whole athlete thing doesn't work out. Like if you chose to just fully invest in sports and to being an athlete, it doesn't make you dumb for not going to get your degree. You know what I mean? That's not the case. Just because unfortunately you may end up in a situation where you can't do sports anymore, it doesn't make you dumb for putting your all into doing it. It doesn't. It's just now you have to be more. You don't have to be more. Now you just have to find those other things. We're all complex. None of us are purely one thing. And it feels like that's this World of Nine of Swords energy. So maybe this is like when it feels like the Queen of Cups, Queen of Pentacles is support. It's like when you are ready to pick yourself up, or when you were ready to pick yourself up. It's almost like this Five of Pentacles energy that was in here. It's like maybe you knew where there was help when you needed it, but you didn't want to accept it for whatever reason. Girl, if you're in your own mind and if you are in the thick of it, if you are down in the weeds, in the mire, waist deep in swamp mess, again, it's like it's so valid and understandable that you didn't reach out. But it feels like when you reach the point that you do want to, you find that support. And it feels like maybe that's a point of a destiny shift. Well, so it's like there's this fated point where you go beyond destiny, or there's this destined point where you go beyond fate. It feels like at that point something else opens up to you. Because the tier in this, or the TYs, it's just this upward pointing arrow. And then there's this boat that's like already waiting for you. So this undermining of confidence, being the Hanged Man, is very understandable. Where this beauty, being the Knight of Swords, is also understandable. This lacking confidence, it's like this with the Hangman, it's like not taking those things because of all of the reasons that you don't take it. Because if you're stuck in the muck, that's why. But again, like with this Three of Wands, when you reach that point with this Nine of Swords, it feels like there's so much momentum behind that. when you know that you are still worth something, even if you're not that top athlete anymore, even if you're not the smartest person alive anymore, even if you're not the fairest in all of the land, because now there's a sleeping beauty somewhere, don't mean you gotta go and connive to murder a girl, because you're still gorgeous. You know what I mean? And you're still the most beautiful to somebody, because you know what I mean? But it's just like there's this movement when you can see the beauty in it. But it's like this stagnation or this not know. It feels like this hangman can't get their bearings because of all of this, because of all of the confidence that they lack. And it's almost like them not being able to get their bearings makes things even worse. That's how especially depression, girl. That's a lot of the mental monsters. That's how they play. It's like, oh, you can't even do this. You should just, girl. If you fought a mental monster, you know how they are. I ain't gotta tell you. But when you can see yourself as beautiful and still worthy and still deserving, regardless of what you can't do anymore, again, it feels like that's when all these resources come in. That's when this movement comes in, and how things play out. Oh, look at that. That's part of the bind room. The tear as part of the bind room on that Knight of Swords. Love that. When you in that energy, girl, that's when things move. And because of the title card, again, I can't say how it's going to turn out for you. It's not for me to. And I feel like, again, that's why it's like this fate beyond destiny, or this destiny beyond fate, because you make the choice for you with no guaranteed outcome. With no guaranteed outcome on how things will physically change, shift, or maneuver. You make the choice to emotionally, mentally, spiritually begin to put the pieces back together. So, yeah, that's the choice that is for you to make. And look at this. It's even blue. Yeah. So, Aries, I wish you all the best. Um, and I also want to say, like, choose your timeline. Like, maybe this is something that you're currently going through. Maybe it's something that you've already gone through. If it's something that you've already gone through, maybe there is someone in your life who could benefit from your wisdom. But not necessarily in a pushy way. You know what I mean? Because I think it's like if pushy wouldn't have worked for you, then maybe be mindful of the fact that it may not work for them. Maybe it is to be pushy though, and not pushy in a pushy way. It's like if it is for you to help someone, then you will be what they need in the way that it is for you. You know, it's what is natural for the Queen of Wands. I want to say what's natural for the Queen of Wands is natural for the Queen of Wands. What's natural for the Queen of Cups is natural for the Queen of Cups. What's natural for the Queen of Swords is natural for the Queen of Swords. And what is natural for the Queen of Pentacles is natural for the Queen of Pentacles. No one's asking the Queen of Pentacles to be the Queen of Swords, or the Queen of Cups to be the Queen of Wands, or for the Queen of Cups to be the Queen of Pentacles. And if they are, girl, it's not for you to do or be. It's like you can naturally give and show up in the way that you know is for you, and feel it out. Use your intuition. Like for me personally, so my journey buddy is an Aries, and speaking of the college days, I remember I was talking to her. I used to work a lot of night shifts, and she would stay up later, so I would see her all the time. I loved it. Um, and I was talking to her one day, and she was like, "Patrick, I think you might be depressed." And I was like, yeah, I know. Am I doing anything about it? No. And then she opened up to me, and I was like, oh my gosh, like I never would have thought that you deal with some of the things that you deal with, because she's always so like bright and energetic and like bubbly. Not necessarily bubbly, full of energy. like a lot of vital force, full of life, full of vitality. So I never would have thought that she ever like had a low moment or whatever. But it was just the way that she was like, Patrick, I think you might be the best. It's also how sometimes like she'll call me out on something. And I'll be like, yeah, I know I didn't want to necessarily admit it, but you know. And she's like, sorry, but you know. And I'm like, you know, don't apologize, because that's what I need her for. I need her to keep me honest. She's also the journey buddy that would be like, Patrick, like, you've already learned this lesson. You already know what to do. And I'm like, oh my gosh, yeah, you're right. I do know what to do. What am I doing? I'm acting like I never learned this. That's why integration was my word for what, 2020? Was it 2020? I think was integration. I can't remember if it was 2020 or 2019. No, it was 2020. I know it was 2020 because summer of 2019 is when she would constantly tell me, Patrick, you already know this. But that's when I went from healing in isolation, healing in my little apartment, to healing in the world and being the healed version of me in the world. Because I got a campus job, and so I couldn't, you know, I didn't exist in the isolation of my apartment anymore. I had to be out in the world. And it was like the things that I learned in isolation, I had to live to experience putting them in practice when I interact with the world. Because, you know, I don't want to live in a bubble. That's just not my choice, you know? I don't want that. So I was going to say, like, we don't live in a bubble, but I'm just going to say I don't want to live in a bubble. So I would love to be my actual better self in person and not always be triggered and unsubconsciously, is that what I want to say? Unconsciously or subconsciously making choices and decisions because I'm triggered. Like, you know, I didn't want that. So her medicine was what I needed. It broke through my Taurian stubbornness, but also like she's very kind. So like I know that she's not gonna say that to me to hurt me, and maybe that's where more of the Queen of Pentacles might come in, where it's like a little tougher. It's not necessarily as like sugar coated as the Queen of Cups is liable to make it. But I say all that to say that, you know, your medicine is for who it is for. So, you know, all the best, Aries. I hope you have an amazing whatever whenever you see this. I hope you're acting in alignment to make all that you wish to experience a reality. And I hope that not only do you allow yourself to see that you are more than the Aries of your Y-O-R-E and not I-O-R like the rune. Um, but I hope you honestly, I hope you're validated in being it, of course. Um, but I don't know. It feels like such a delicate process that it's not. Like I almost intended to say, it's like there's nothing that I can hope for you because it is so self-driven. Um, it's like, of course, I can hope it for you. Of course, of course. It just feels like really intricate, I guess, complex. And so I don't know what to hope for you. So I'll say what I always say. I hope that whatever you need along your path, journey, and way, you find in a way that, preferably in a way that is easy to discern, so you know exactly why it's there, and you don't got to play 21,000 questions figuring out why this person or why this experience or why that has come in. Um, but yeah, I feel like that's also sort of been a theme in this sequence of readings. It's like allowing yourself to be more. I hope you can see yourself as the more that you are destined or fated to be, outside of everything that you currently believe of destiny, if it exists for you outside of destiny. Some of you may return to the thing. Some of you may recover if it's an injury. Some of you may find something different that you discover that you enjoy a lot more. And again, it's not, I don't want to make joy comparative. Um, but it's more like for the person that you are now, or for the phase of life that you are in now, you enjoy it. And maybe you wouldn't have enjoyed it as much back then because there was another passion that you had at the time. And again, it doesn't make you stupid. It doesn't make you vain. It doesn't make you anything but human. And we're all human, girl. You know, some of us more than others. What does that mean? I don't know. I'll catch you when I catch you, Aries. Oh, I wanted to say I love you. Oh my gosh, like I love you, Aries. I really do. I like to say that, I know may not always seem super apparent, but then everyone's always like, girl, like, you think you a sassy little chili pepper, but we know that you still, like, you care about people and you're soft and, so. But I don't know. I didn't necessarily feel the compulsion with anybody else. Um, yeah. Maybe that was just my deep desire to be that person to validate whatever you need validated without knowing your exact specific situation to validate you in the way that you need to be. You know, that's my general attempt at specific validation for you. It's the best I can do, Aries.